Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet, the voice you know with the news you trust studio, sponsored by the Grain Equipment Company, where innovation meets execution. I'm Joe Everett. Well, currently 61 degrees outside here at the farm this morning, and today is election day, and since we live in the greatest country in the world where we are able to vote, make sure you go out and do so today and make your voice be heard. Now looking at the calendar, powered by soy biodiesel, we will be visiting with Farm Credit Mid-America about the importance of year-end planning. Then tomorrow, Dale visits with Hardin County farmer Shane Kellogg. Some of you might know him from the truck pulling world for an update on biodiesel performance. Now let's take a look at today's weather, brought to us by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
Another day of hit and miss moisture in Ohio. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at your forecast update. I don't have any major changes in the outlook here today. I do think that we are mostly staying precipitation free in a large majority of the counties out there. Moisture's around, but it's very hit and miss today. I think our best chance at moisture is going to be coming through overnight tonight through tomorrow as the frontal boundary finally moves eastward more than the moisture is moving north. So hit and miss shower activity today, good rounds of showers, even a few thunderstorms tomorrow. All in, all done. I still think you have to put in another quarter to 1 inch of rain potential with coverage at around 90% of the state by the time we get done with tomorrow. Dry for Thursday, Friday, and Saturday over the entirety of the state. High pressure in control. We're a little bit cool to start, but then warming up nicely into the weekend. Next round of moisture shows up Sunday midday and afternoon as a system works in, bringing a quarter to 3/4 of an inch with coverage at around 75% of the state. We are dry then from Monday afternoon into Tuesday before another weather system shows up next Wednesday. That one, quarter to half-inch rain totals, coverage around 80% of Ohio. Behind it, though, we are significantly cooler as we finish out next week. Cold Canadian air on the move southward across the Great Lakes. Could be the coolest air of the season so far, but remember, we've been pretty doggone warm this season. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Well, as farmers continue to make great harvest progress, let's see how they're getting along. The Ohio Crop Progress Report update is sponsored by AgriSpray Drones, empowering rural America through complete spray drone solutions. You can contact them at agrispraydrones.com/Arnold Precision. Starting with the national numbers, corn harvest progress moved ahead 10 percentage points nationally last week to reach 91% complete as of Sunday. That was 13 points ahead of last year's 78% and 16 points ahead of the 5-year average of 52%. Looking at soybeans, soybean harvest moved ahead 5 percentage points to reach 94% complete as of Sunday. That was 5 points ahead of last year's 89% and 9 points ahead of the 5-year average of 85%. Looking at winter wheat planting progress, it moved ahead 7 points to reach 87% complete nationwide as of Sunday. That is 1 point behind last year's 88% and 2 points behind the 5-year average of 89%. As for its crop development, an estimated 66% of the winter wheat had emerged as of Sunday. That is 6 points behind last year's 72% and 5 points behind the 5-year average of 71%. Looking at its crop condition, an estimated 41% of the winter wheat had emerged and was in good to excellent condition. That is up 3 points from 38% the previous week, and that continued to trail last year's rating of 50% good to excellent by 9 percentage points. Now looking at your numbers from the Buckeye State, topsoil moisture condition was rated 83% short to very short, and the average temperature for the week was 55.1 degrees, and that was 5.3 degrees above normal. Corn harvested for grain is at 89% complete this week. That jumped 17 points over last week and is 49 points ahead of last year and is still 37 points ahead of the 5-year average. Soybean harvested are at 96% complete this week. That jumped 6 points over last week and is 10 points ahead of last year and 14 points ahead of our 5-year average. Winter wheat planted made great progress. It is at 95% complete this week. That is 7 points over last week, 2 points ahead of last year, and is even with our 5-year average. As for the winter wheat emerged, it is at 69% this week. That is 17 points ahead of last week, but is still 2 points behind last year and 6 points behind the 5-year average. As for its crop condition, it was rated 68% was in good to excellent condition. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more after this.
Since 1926, Nationwide has been rooted in agriculture. Founded as the Farm Bureau Mutual Automobile Insurance Company with a mission to protect farmers and their communities, we honor our legacy by offering solutions that evolve with the complex needs of today's farms. As the leading insurer of America's farms and trusted by 8 farm bureaus for 100 years and counting, Nationwide is on your side. Number 1 insurer based on 2023 direct written premium per AM Best. Nationwide Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates, Columbus, Ohio.
Nearly 90% of farmers say that financial worries, constantly changing market conditions, and other uncontrollable variables take a toll on their mental well-being. Add in the weather and family dynamics, well, it's a lot to handle alone. But did you know farmers and their families can receive free confidential services from licensed professionals? Support is available 24/7 to help with the challenges you face. Look for Farm Family Wellness Alliance under the Resources tab at farmfoundation.org. Take care of yourself. Your well-being matters.
Well, a pair of new names have earned the title of Bin Buster in the 2024 National Wheat Yield Contest. On Monday, the National Wheat Foundation announced this year's 26 national and 94 state winners, including those who topped the contest categories. Phil Gross of Warden, Washington, bested all contestants in the 2024 and earned Bin Buster honors with his irrigated hard red winter wheat entry that yielded 223.08 bushels per acre. It's the second highest yield record in the contest's 9-year history and Gross's 5th time atop the category. The dryland winter wheat Bin Buster was Steve Van Grunsven of Fort Grove, Oregon, who earned the title for the second time with soft white winter wheat and averaged 170.63 bushels per acre. Now looking to other news, is U.S. agriculture in a recession? Well, at least one economist thinks so. Dr. Ernie Goss, a Creighton University professor, says it depends on what sector of agriculture and the overall economy you are talking about.
We are in terms of agriculture on the grain side, certainly. And manufacturing, one could argue there as well, is moving sideways. The manufacturing sector in the U.S. has lost about 45,000 jobs this year alone. And you're looking at agriculture also there with manufacturing. But manufacturing is not down as much as agriculture.
What kind of impact are the economic challenges having on jobs, both in and out of agriculture?
On the hiring side on rural Main Street, not as tough as you might think out there. And that's outside of agriculture. That would be the businesses on Main Street, whether we're talking about leisure and hospitality, whether you're talking about dry cleaners and other businesses out there. Optimism is not there right now. It's still very weak. Again, these indices range between 0 and 100. The October confidence index was at almost 30, 29.6 actually.
Again, that was Dr. Ernie Goss of Creighton University. Well, while the last lame duck session of Congress represents one last chance at a farm bill, industry experts say it would require compromise on a number of tricky issues. Farm Policy News says it would require House and Senate leaders to agree on spending in quite a few important areas. One report says Senate Ag Committee Chair Debbie Stabenow holds the key to finishing the farm bill this year. The question is whether she can work out a deal with the other major farm bill players. Some insiders say Stabenow would like one last farm bill completion as her legacy item, as she isn't running for re-election. Well, the Farm Credit System reported that combined net income was relatively stable at $1.98 billion for the third quarter of 2024 as compared with $2 billion from the third quarter of last year. For the 9 months ending on September 20th, the Farm Credit System combined net income increased 7.3% to $5.91 billion. That's compared to $5.51 billion for the same period last year. While farmers and grain traders are awaiting 2 major USDA reports coming out at the end of this week. Gary Crawford from the U.S. Department of Agriculture has more.
When it comes to USDA's crop production forecasts,
by the time we get to November, the forecasts are usually very close to what we end up seeing as the final yields.
Lance Honig is with USDA's Ag Statistics Service, which will release its crop production forecast later this week. And Honig told us,
in a year like this in particular, where harvest has been moving very quickly, what that means is for the farmers that we're surveying, and it's close to 6,000 farmers that we surveyed leading up to this report, in many cases they're reporting actual yields to us because they're well into harvest, if not finished.
Also, USDA experts have been tracking, measuring, and lab testing over 3,000 actual field plots.
And so it's pretty close to final data that we're collecting.
All this to ensure that the next USDA crop production forecast is as accurate as possible, and that report will be released this Friday, the 8th, noon Eastern Time. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Again, that was Gary Crawford from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Stay tuned. We'll be back to take a look at your grain analysis and your overnight markets after this.
Those long days in a tractor cab can really put a cramp in your body. So while refueling or refilling your equipment, walk around the tractor a few times or do a few head-to-toe stretching exercises. When fatigue does set in, that's when injuries and mistakes happen. Know when it's time to take a break and recharge. Let's make sure everyone gets home safe and sound. This message from the Ohio AgNet, OSU Extension Ag Safety and Health Team, and this station.
Joey from Vermont, a farmer trying to get through the winter. Adriana from South Carolina, a single mother living paycheck to paycheck. Liam from Ohio, an injured father struggling to provide for his family. Hi, I'm Shanola Hampton, and I support the Feeding America network of food banks because they help provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
It's now time for the Louis Dreyfus Grain Analysis, and that's brought to you by the Ohio Soybean Council and your soybean checkoff. Here's Ryan Martin.
Markets finished mixed to mostly higher to start the week on Monday. Election day ringing in the thoughts of many, but the markets really were just kind of searching for any new headline to gravitate to. The markets were up early on, but then came off of the session highs as we moved through midday in the afternoon hours. Lack of fundamentally bullish news was the big decision maker in the markets pulling back, but also weather is not really all that threatening, especially when you look at it in South America, Argentina, southern Brazil. Right now, staying away from long-term dryness and a lot of heat. The forecast now going out into the second half of November and look like it's good for the crops that are planted or being planted at this stage of the game. Soy crust margins have not changed much here over the course of the past few days. Profit-taking, short covering has been occurring in multiple markets. Yesterday was the last full session ahead of the election, and that's going to be the big talking point, I think, through the next 24 to 48 hours overall. Energy markets give a little bit of a bump to commodities in general as well. Crude up over $2 for a good chunk of the day yesterday. Most of that came on news that OPEC is delaying any hike in output until January. The Dow yesterday was choppy, up and down, but not by large margins any direction. Export inspections yesterday, nothing really super exciting here. Corn inspections were at 31 million bushels versus 33 the previous week. Soybeans 79 versus 97. And we take a look at wheat, a meager 7 million bushels versus a pretty paltry 11 the week prior as well. But when you look at it crop year to date, corn is up 34% year on year, beans only up 4% year on year, and wheat's up 35%. So corn and wheat really knocking out of the park here as we get started on this crop year. That means we probably do not see any changes in the WASDE reports over the next couple of months. I'm Ryan Martin.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Now let's take a look at your overnight markets, brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. While things are a little mixed in Chicago, let's start off with December corn, 416 3/4, up a quarter. March corn, 429 1/2, down a half. May corn, 436 3/4, down a half. November soybeans, 987 1/4, unchanged. January soybeans, $10 3/4, up 3 1/2. March corn, 1014 3/4, up 3. December wheat, 569 1/2, up 3/4. March wheat, 588, up a half. Looking at livestock from yesterday's close, things weren't very positive yesterday. December live cattle 185.07, down 85 cents. February live cattle 185.92, down 97 cents. December lean hogs 83.22, down 85 cents. And February lean hogs 85.32, down 70 cents. January feeder cattle 242.42, down 77 cents. And March feeder cattle 240.25, down 90 cents. December Class 3 milk, 19.27, down 12 cents. And January Class 3 milk, 19.39, down 12 cents. To stay up to date on all the latest agricultural news, you can find that at ohioagnet.com. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joe Everett, and this is the Ohio AgNet.